So we've got Kris Van Cleave standing by on the Hill. We've got Ed O'Keefe at the White House. We're also going to bring in CBS News congressional producer and reporter Rebecca Kaplan to talk to us about this. But wow, I mean, guys, Liz Cheney there saying, I just want reaction from all three of our stellar reporters to what Liz Cheney just said there. I don't know if she's going to be able to do this, Kris, but for Liz Cheney to go on national TV, and this happened just moments ago, it happened actually before Representative Kinzinger spoke to reporters, for Liz Cheney to say that she's going to do everything in her power to ensure that President Trump never gets near the Oval Office. Pretty strong words, probably the strongest words I've ever heard leveled against former President Trump by a member of his own party, Kris.
Well, you know, I told you she was not going to be silent and that she would not go off into the night, and she very clearly made that point walking out of that caucus room today. Look, you're going to hear a very clear message from Liz Cheney moving forward that she doesn't see a place for Donald Trump in her vision of the Republican Party. You know, those are striking words to say she's going to work against President Trump should he run for re-election. You know, I mean, that's a significant statement, but pretty much in line with everything she's said. So I think you're going to hear more talk like that from Liz Cheney in the days to come. And, you know, she's made her position very clear, and she's going to stick with it, and she's going to be vocal about it.
And Ed, I thought it was really interesting that when she was asked whether or not she felt betrayed by the party, she said no. I mean, I sort of kind of interpreted that as, at least even going through all of this, there's still a deep loyalty, devotion, and a belief in what the Republican Party stood for at one point to her. And clearly, you know, she said it's not what it was before. She didn't say it in those words, but she wants to bring it back to what it was before. The question is, can she? A lot of, you know, these representatives are making decisions about their short-term future because so many Republicans believe in the big lie. The only way to sort of stay in your job is to also kind of acknowledge what your voting public wants you to acknowledge. So I'm wondering if she sort of sticks around, which she will, obviously. I mean, this sort of work that she's hoping to do is going to take a long time. We're talking about sort of little incremental changes.
Yeah, and I think we'll hear that clip played over and over again of her saying, I'm going to work as hard as I can to keep the former president away from the Oval Office. That's something we'll hear a lot of, and frankly, that's a clip we should pull now because it's going to come back to bite the Republican Party probably at different times in different ways between now and 2024. And I think it's important to remind people what job she just got booted from. And Kris and Rebecca, if I get this wrong, you jump in. But look at House Republican leadership like a choir. Kevin McCarthy's the band leader. Steve Scalise is maybe the one that makes sure everybody's there, the altos, the tenors, the bass singers. Liz Cheney hands out the song sheets and helps pick the music. In essence, she's the messenger, or the lead messenger. She helps craft what it is they're going to be talking about and doing, and runs these meetings where they're supposed to talk about this and stay unified and organized. That's the position from which she's been removed. Not her job as a representative from Wyoming, but this job of sort of housekeeping and message crafting, which is very political and bureaucratic, and on principle, McCarthy, Scalise, and now apparently a majority of House Republicans believe that to have her in charge of the message going into 22 is detrimental to their chances of retaking the majority as they try to sort out what they are, who they are, and how they're going to stand against Democrats in the Biden administration going into those elections. But by removing her, she can, in essence, start a rival choir and try to take it back at some point and redirect the entire party, if not by the 22 cycle, then going into 2024. And, you know, like we've said, since we began this conversation, it's going to take time, but what they did to her today emboldens her, gives her more of a platform, and we'll see ultimately who wins the argument. We're not going to know that for quite some time.
All right. So we've got Rebecca up on our screens now to bring her in. Rebecca, thank you as always. You were providing the information to both Kris, Ed, and myself and Anne Marie about what was actually happening within the House. As always, just on it for us as a news organization. So tell us what you know. I mean, you know, I thought it was interesting. One other thing that we haven't talked about much is Elise Stefanik. I thought it was interesting that Representative Kinzinger said, you know, for people that were sort of sniffing around this job before we had even voted to oust Liz Cheney, I'm going to have to think about that. And he's not going to vote. I know he's in the minority, but he's not going to vote for somebody who is going to continue to perpetrate the big lie. Just talk to us about Congresswoman Stefanik, who was a pretty moderate Republican who comes from a very moderate district here in New York State, up in Essex County. And I know that her positions were not even as closely aligned to President Trump's as Liz Cheney's were, if you look at her voting record, until sort of the last, 8 months or last, 9 months especially during the impeachment trial. So what do you think about what Kinzinger just said?
I mean, it's been a pretty stunning transition for Stefanik and the way that she has evolved politically over the years. Now, I know Ed will be on standby to give you all of the color about her district in upstate New York, which is, his territory that he's an expert on. I can tell you that I met Stefanik first when she was working as a debate prep coach for Paul Ryan back during the 2012 election. He was running as vice president, then debated our current president, Joe Biden, and she was the one helping him prepare. This is someone who worked in the Bush White House. She worked on the Romney campaign. She was very much this traditional conservative in the mold that we knew for so many years. And what happened was after 2016, her district, which had previously gone for President Obama, now flipped to a Trump district. And she just saw the change. And, for some politicians, they stick to what their principles had been and they end up losing their seats as their districts change around them. For Stefanik, the decision was to adopt what her constituents wanted to see, which was support of President Trump, and she went in wholeheartedly. And we first really saw that during the 2019, the first impeachment of the former president. She sits on the House Judiciary Committee, to the House Intelligence Committee, and she became this outspoken, ardent defender of the former president in these hearings, which was really a surprise to everyone on Capitol Hill because, as you said, Vlad, she had been known for a voting record that was not spot on with the president. She was not always in agreement with him on some major issues, foreign policy, on taxes. So that was a huge change, and she just won plaudits from her colleagues and especially from the Republican base for, clashing with Intelligence Committee Chairman Adam Schiff during those hearings, got a lot of new donors, and that really helped carry the day. But there are certainly going to be detractors that she has. Kinzinger obviously is one of them because he believes that she has gone too far down this rabbit hole of supporting the former president. There are going to be a few members from the House Freedom Caucus. Yesterday, we got this letter from Congressman Chip Roy asking his colleagues to think seriously about considering someone else for the position who has a more consistent voting record with where most of the party is and where the former president is. So there will be some detractors. But one thing I can tell you is that the House leadership, House GOP leadership, McCarthy and Scalise, who have lined up behind Stefanik, as well as the former president publicly, are trying to move this quickly. They have scheduled a candidate forum for tomorrow where members will be able to talk to Scalise, talk to Stefanik and ask her about her positions. Any candidates for the position, for Cheney's position, are due today, and then the election to replace Cheney is going to take place on Friday, my sources tell me. So they are trying to move this along quickly and prevent any chance of Stefanik's candidacy getting derailed.
So, Rebecca, I was going to ask you how she ended up emerging as the looks like sole contender for this number 3 position, and you sort of described her rise in prominence within the party. But still, to the point that you just made, there are other GOP representatives that have been in lockstep with the president from the very beginning. How come no other names have come up, or perhaps they have?
Simply put, this was her moving very quickly to consolidate support. She had a few things going for her. Obviously, the endorsement from former President Trump is huge. The fact that McCarthy and Scalise came out publicly for her quickly helped really solidify the party behind her candidacy, or at least helped ward off other challengers. And that may have been what's important here. And for the Republicans who don't think that she should be the messaging person for the conference now, the problem is there's no alternative. Stefanik does have her support. She lined up a very diverse team of members to help whip for her. Everyone from Patrick McHenry from North Carolina, who has close ties to leadership and is more kind of an establishment Republican, to Claudia Tenney from New York, far-right conservative. So she's got this very diverse team helping to pull in support. She also notably helped foster a number of female candidates throughout the last couple election cycles. That was kind of her big thing, was trying to get more Republican women to run for office. So there's a number of women in the GOP today who Stefanik helped find, helped foster, helped build their campaigns and get them to the Capitol. So she does have a pretty widespread base of support, but it was really this move to very quickly lock down the support of the leadership of her party, being McCarthy, Scalise, the support of the president, and that really is going to help ward off anyone else from trying to publicly challenge her. But we'll have to see how the next 24 to 48 hours go on this issue.
Wow. What a morning so far. Go ahead, Ed. You have one last thing.
Rebecca, wasn't there something about what happened in the meeting that you just passed along? Was she booed?
Sure, I can tell you a little bit. Yes, so Representative Cheney, my sources in the room tell me, gave a speech. This meeting was really, really fast. Normally this meeting goes about an hour, and that's without any excitement. And the last time that there was an effort to oust Cheney, that meeting took, I think, about 4 hours. This one, about 20 minutes. Cheney came in, she gave a speech very similar to the one that she gave last night on the House floor against former President Trump, against his message. She was actually booed for that speech by some of her colleagues, I'm told by sources in the room. And then, very quickly, Representative Virginia Foxx from North Carolina offered the motion to remove her from her position. Kevin McCarthy, the minority leader, said that he supported that, and then he pushed for a voice vote. So he said he didn't want to do a recorded vote on the issue for the sake of unity for the party, so didn't really want to force colleagues to take a stand on this issue and go on the record. Now, it would be very easy to do a vote by secret ballot in the GOP conference, but it seemed like it was going to be easier and easier on his members, certainly, to just be able to do a quick voice vote, everyone say aye or nay, and then it was done very fast. And Cheney did receive, someone asked that she receive some applause for her leadership, and she did receive that. But otherwise, most of her colleagues, I think there's a lot of them very strongly disagree with her and have said as much in recent days. And for others, they are frankly just happy that they won't have to answer questions about whether they agree with her anymore. Now, that may not stop, because she does not seem like she is going to be silent. She has told us that. But certainly without her being the messenger for the conference, there are going to be fewer opportunities for her to clash with her colleagues in front of cameras on Capitol Hill.
And Vlad, real quick, the guy who essentially stirred this pot to begin with, the former president, has weighed in with a new statement calling the Congresswoman, quote, a bitter, horrible human being. I watched her yesterday and realized how bad she is for the Republican Party. Says that she's a Democratic talking point on all sorts of issues. She is a warmonger whose family stupidly pushed us into the never-ending Middle East disaster, draining our wealth and depleting our great military, the worst decision in our country's history. I look forward to soon watching her as a paid contributor on CNN, or as he puts it, MSDNC. So that's where his head is at. And that, folks, essentially defines the schism of the Republican Party going into the midterm elections. And as their two leaders come here to the White House in the next hour to start talking about whether Congress and the White House can actually get anything done. How does a president eager to get things done in a bipartisan fashion work with a party so clearly at odds with itself that can't agree on who's in charge, can't agree on what it's about, and can't even agree on reality? It's a real tricky situation for this White House as they try to actually keep Washington focused on getting things done for the broader American public.
That is a salient point, Ed. And let's remember that the party also, they put forth no platform. Remember, the platform was whatever Donald Trump says it is. Yeah. So they don't even have something that they can point to. as they, other than culture, you know, they want to talk about Dr. Seuss and cancel culture. If you want the biggest example of cancel culture in America right now, it's what we just witnessed happening in the House of Representatives. Somebody who is actually speaking the truth, being ousted from a leadership position, somebody who is, you know, one of the most conservative members of Congress, who comes from a long line of conservative family members, her father specifically, the former Vice President and Secretary of Defense, you know, having people suggest that she's going to somehow end up, you know, on another network or spouting DNC talking points. Liz Cheney, coming out of that meeting, said we cannot embrace the big lie and embrace the Constitution. And yesterday evening, she said it's not about policy and it's not about partisanship. It's just about the truth. And that's where we are right now. All right. What a fascinating discussion. I want to thank Rebecca. I want to thank Kris, Ed O'Keefe. You guys are amazing, as always, to be with us throughout this breaking news while it was happening, and to provide the context and the color. And Rebecca, with all of your sourcing and information that just made us better, we so appreciate it, as we do every single day. Thank you, guys.
Sure thing.
Thank you, Vlad.
All right, Anne-Marie, there's still a lot going on. We barely scratched the surface this morning. I know. Whiplash. Talk about whiplash. So we're expecting to hear from top House Republicans. And Anne-Marie, it'll be so fascinating, right? I think that, you know, Rebecca just said it, that, or maybe even was Kris, that they want to move on from this, and this is the way to do that, right? Okay, we got rid of Liz Cheney. Let's go back to talking about cancel culture and Dr. Seuss and Mr. Potato Head. But the reality is that if I'm a reporter there on the Hill, all I'm going to be doing is asking questions about this and what it means for the party. So we've got that.
I will be very curious to see how many Republicans make themselves available and say how they voted, because, you know, there's a certain amount of anonymity in a voice vote. I expect that we will hear from Kevin McCarthy, but I'm wondering about others and why they will say they felt that Liz Cheney needed to be removed from this position. Right now, we've only heard from Liz Cheney and at least one of her supporters. I'm wondering who else is bold enough to come forward.
So we've got that going on. And then later, President Biden and Vice President Harris are going to meet with House leaders Pelosi and McCarthy. Wonder how long that meeting is going to last. They're also going to be joined by Senate leaders Schumer and McConnell. CBSN, of course, will be keeping a close eye on all of this throughout the morning, and we'll bring you live updates as we get